Hi everyone, Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. Want to say thank you so much for joining me today. And today on the show, I'm super excited. I know I say that a lot, but I really am excited. We have Mr. Bob Burg with us today. Now, Bob is a speaker. He is a best-selling author, and he is what we would call a true go-giver. He has recently co-authored a new book called The Go-Giver, A Little Secret about a powerful business idea. It's a parable, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I can't wait to get into it. So welcome, Bob.
Well, thanks, Sheila. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, I've read your book. I've read several of your books, actually. And, I know a little bit about you, and I think most people probably do. But let's share a little bit of your background and kind of how that got you to where you are today.
Well, I began in radio and television, started out as a radio broadcaster and then television. I was trying to get into television sports, but there was a news job that opened up. So, of course, I took that because you basically, you took anything you could at that time to sort of get into the door. I was a newscaster for a small ABC affiliate in the Midwest. I really wasn't a very good newscaster. I was not I could read the news, but I wasn't in any way a journalist. I was 24 years old. I was young. I didn't really know the news, and I didn't really care. So that doesn't make a good combination. And I was probably a little bit too positive for the medium anyway. My idea of a good newscast opening would have been to say, "Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Burg, and the news tonight, everything's great."
They don't like that.
Go to bed. We'll let you know if something comes up. So right now, they don't like that. And so I very quickly found myself not in news, and I had graduated into sales. Now, the only challenge was, Sheila, that while I intuitively knew that selling was about finding a way to provide value to someone, to a prospect and a customer, client, I didn't know how to do it. And the training at the company where I first started was minimal at best. And so I floundered for a little bit. I had the motivation. I did not have the information. So fortunately, I walked into a bookstore. Now, this is 30 years ago, back in the days when the main feature of a bookstore was books, not all the ancillary stuff.
That was back in the day.
Back in the day. And so one of the books was How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins, which is today a sales classic. Now, the interesting thing about this was before even reading it, just looking at the title, How to Master the Art of Selling, it gave me hope and encouragement. Why? Because it said to me, wow, there's actually a system for this. There's a methodology, how to master the art of selling. It's not just walking in and trying to talk about your product or service and hoping they're interested. And so I got the book and I read it and I devoured it, actually. And within about 3 weeks, my sales began to go through the roof. Now, the only difference where I was 3 weeks earlier and at that point was I had some information I didn't previously have. I now had a system. And I define a system as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. In other words, the key being predictability.
Love that.
Yeah. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then all you need to do is A, and if you do it consistently enough, you'll eventually get the desired results of B. And so at that point, I started to realize that not only did I not have to do it myself, I wasn't smart enough to do it myself, and that thankfully there was information out there. So I began to study Hopkins. I began to study Zig Ziglar. I began to study that back at that time. I'd go to whenever I could go to a live event and watch a salesperson do it. I would always do it. So I began to learn and study the craft, and I had success in sales, worked my way up to sales manager, and eventually started part-time selling. Back then it was tapes, not even CDs. Started selling tapes for another speaker and kind of learned the craft a little bit. And then I developed my own programs based on what was working for me. And I've been speaking now to a corporate audience for almost 25 years.
I love that story. Let me ask you this. So you learned it and then you went and you applied it. And then early in your sales career, did you start teaching others? I know you said you moved your way up. So did you teach others that secret? Did you share that secret?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I'm not sure they're necessarily secrets because they're out there for everyone.
Right.
I think the only, and it's as Pindar said in The Go-Giver, the only reason why he calls it a secret is just so that people will want to know about it.
That's right.
If you say, let me give you this information that's out there for everybody, oh no, I don't want it. But it's a secret. Oh, I want to know it. So none of it's a secret because when you think of it, Sheila, it's all, there's nothing new under the sun. It's all been around for all the success principles that have been out there. And when John David Mann and I wrote The Go-Giver, right after it came out, it started selling pretty quickly. And we were very thankful for that. We were very grateful for that. But when the media would ask, so what is it about this book that you and Mann have co-authored? What is it about it that's so special, that's anything new? My answer would always surprise them because I'd always say, nothing.
And it's not a secret.
It's not a secret. There's nothing new. We may have, thanks to the great writing and storytelling of John David Mann, we may have put it in a way that was interesting and a good fun read because it's a business parable, but certainly nothing new in terms of principles that work.
I find that funny because we see that a lot in life and business, right? You're not reinventing the wheel. You're learning the principles of that and then applying them to your situation. I find that with small business owners all the time. They think they have to do so many different things. And usually if you just fine tune a few things that you already know, it makes a big difference.
My friend and colleague, Joe Calloway, wrote a great book called How to Be the Best at What Matters Most. And in fact, I just did a blog post about it at burg.com/blog. You can scroll down to find it. But basically what he says is the key, he says so many times people talk about, being outside the box and doing all these things. He said, you know what? The game or the business is won or lost inside the box.
Oh.
It's doing the basics. It's doing the fundamentals so well again and again and again in a way that adds value to the customer that you're the person they're going to go with. So be the best at what matters most.
I so love that you said that because I think it's true because, with my class, I'm trying to, it's the basics. It's the basics that count. And it's not the big systems. It's small things that make a difference. And making sure you know what your customer needs. That's what matters.
That's the biggest thing at all.
Social media isn't going to save you. It's just a communication tool. But it's so hard to convince people of that right now.
Yeah, it's another good tool.
It's a great tool.
Right. And people often ask, well, should I be on social media or real world, in real life type of things? It's not an or, it's an and. It's another medium that adds to what you're doing anyway. It's a way that allows you to create more relationships than you may not have been able to it allows you to meet people you may not have been able to meet without it. And it allows you to develop relationships, fairly quickly through the medium. But unless you have the basic skills and the basic ways of connecting with people and the basic premise that your job is to find ways to add value to people's lives, social media isn't going to do anything more for you than going to a business card exchange at the chamber and just passing out business cards to 50 people and hoping you're going to get business from them.
So true. I love that. And listen, that's a great segue into, let's talk about this book a little bit. Let's talk about the 5 laws. So I don't want to give too much away because I do think that everyone should get this book and read it because it's a great little read. But let's talk about what those 5 laws are.
Sure. And let me just, first, the basic premise of the book, which comes out in the laws, but the basic premise itself, Sheila, is simply that shifting one's focus, if you will, from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we mean constantly creating value for others, and that doing so is not only a nice way to live life, it's a financially profitable way to live life as well. It's being able to move from what we call an I focus or a me focus to an other focus. And the person who can do that, that's the person who accomplishes the most, both long-term, medium-term, and short-term. So we look at the laws, the laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The first law being the law of value, which simply says your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, what does that really mean? Because when you first hear it, it's a little bit counterintuitive, and John David Mann and I, we kind of write that way. We try to take things from a little bit of a different angle, not in a curmudgeon way of saying, oh, this is the only way to do it, but in a way that kind of gives a little bit of a different look. And so give more in value than you take in payment. Now, that sounds like kind of a recipe for bankruptcy when you first hear it. How do I give more in value than I take in payment and thrive, never mind survive? Well, we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, that brings with it so much worth or value that someone will willingly exchange their money for it and be ecstatic that they did while you make a very healthy profit? And I like to give an example. I think it's a quick, easy example of, let's say you hire an accountant to do your taxes. This accountant charges you $1,000. That's her fee or price. But what does she give you in exchange for this price, this $1,000 price? What value does she give you? Well, let's say through her expertise, her experience, the way she works with you, the way she listens to your needs, her empathy, the way her office staff treats you, she saves you well over $5,000 on your taxes. She saves you hours of work that allows you to do what you do best and what you would rather do. And she provides you with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So what she's done is she's given you well over $5,000 of value, both concrete and conceptual value, in exchange for a $1,000 price or fee. So she gave you more in value than she took in payment, so you feel great about it. And she made a very healthy profit, which she should. This is the kind of relationship we want to have with anyone with whom we do business. We want to give them such a great, unique, fantastic, wonderful, terrific buying experience, like Ernesto, the restaurateur in the book, okay?
That's right.
That they feel wonderful about it while we make a very healthy profit. And this comes back to, again, focus that we were talking about earlier. If you're focused on the money, that person's going to understand that. They're going to know that's what you're doing it for. They're going to know they're going to be less likely to feel good about you, to trust you. However, if they know your focus is on them, providing value to them, caring about their wants, their needs, their desires, they're going to feel good about you, they're going to trust you, they're going to respect you, and if they want what it is you offer, the money's going to exchange hands. Now, this is why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning, which simply means that the value comes first, and the money you receive is simply a direct and very natural result of the value you've provided, that you've given.
I love that. And I totally agree. I mean, I think you have to give to receive. I mean, we've been taught that forever, but it seems like so many, especially bigger businesses, I don't think they get that. And some of the clients that I work with, they want to talk about themselves, so nobody cares. No, the client doesn't want that. And realizing the opposite side of the coin, it's just hard to get them to get it.
Well, that's true. I think in a lot of ways it is. And that's why the ones who get it do very, very well. And, you look at the companies, and leadership, as you know, generally comes from the top down. And so it depends what their real focus is. And when their focus is on providing exquisite value to the customers and to their own team, that's what comes out. And that's what flows down throughout. That's what trickles down throughout the organization. And so, do a lot of companies not get it? Well, absolutely, a lot don't get it. But that's that's part of life.
That's life. That's because they haven't read your book.
Well, and many other great books out there.
Well, let's talk about the second one, which deals with compensation.
Yeah, law number 2, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us that the more people whose lives we add this kind of exceptional value to, the more money with which we'll be rewarded. Your accountant in the first example did a great job of giving more in value than he took in payment while still making a profit. So if you are his client, her client I think it was, if you're her client, you feel great about her. You would do business with her again, and you'd refer her to others. Well, her other clients feel the exact same way. So our accountant is very quickly amassing what we call an army of personal walking ambassadors. And as she, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I just was wondering, how do you, so I'm sure you get this question all the time. Well, if I'm giving so much and I'm adding value to, and I'm widening that out, how do I do business? How do I keep up? How do I get enough for myself? Now that's the other side of the coin, but what is your counter to that?
Well, there's not so much a counter as much as maybe we need to look at it in a little bit of a different way, because I think the question kind of suggests that by giving, you're not creating a situation or a context for receiving. But that's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
This accountant who gave you so much, who was able not only to give you so much value, but communicate that value. She didn't take a vow of poverty. She made a great profit from doing business with you.
Right.
Ernesto, the restaurant in the story, gave wonderful. His restaurant was renowned for the amazing service and the atmosphere and the ambiance and the wonderful quality of the food. And he was a very wealthy man. So when you are giving value, again, when we talk about giving value, we're talking about what it takes to start the receiving process in a free market-based economy. No one's forced to do business with you.
Right.
So they're only going to do business with you when they see themselves realizing value from it. In exchange for that value, they're going to exchange another form of value, currency.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And in a world where we don't take as much appreciation for customer service and giving back, the other day I was at Discount Tire, and I've received such great service there. I've told everyone about Discount Tire. And, it's an atmosphere that sometimes women go in and go, I'm going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. It wasn't like that at all. Exceptional customer service from the very beginning. We just don't see that a lot. So I went and I sang their praises.
Okay. Now, from singing their praises, do you think people, especially in your sphere of influence, people who know, like, and trust you, do you think they went in then and did business with them?
Absolutely. I think it really can make an impact.
So that's the answer to the question.
Yeah.
When you're giving. When you're giving value, you're creating what we call a benevolent context for success. Give value like that, and you receive, because not only are you going to do business with that person again, but that person's going to tell others about you, and you're going to develop that army of personal walking ambassadors. So it's not a matter of give for the sake of nothing happening.
Right.
Because the receptivity it's an echo of value. It's the result of it.
Gotcha. All right, let's talk about the third law, which deals with influence.
Sure. This law says, the law of influence says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, this sounds counterproductive at best, and maybe even downright Pollyanna-ish at worst. And yet, if you notice, the great leaders, the top influencers, the most successful and profitable salespeople, this is simply how they conduct their lives and run their business. They are always finding ways. They're stepping outside themselves and focusing on ways they can provide value to other people. So I need to qualify, especially in today's day of political correctness, it's important to qualify that when we say place other people's interests first, we don't mean in any way that we're suggesting that you be anybody's doormat, a martyr, or self-sacrificial in any way. So if you're listening to this play, that's not what we're saying. But it's as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, told Joe, the protege, the golden rule of business is what? All things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings from others than by, again, moving from that I focus to an other focus. What we could call, and Thomas Power, an author from the United Kingdom, in his book Networking for Life, used this term, which I really liked. He called it the willing suspension of self-interest. Not the foregoing of self-interest. We're human beings. We are self-interested creatures. We were created that. Thank goodness. It's what allows us to survive. It's what allows us to thrive. It's what allows our body to fight off disease naturally. It's what allows us to create more human beings. It's what allows us to create inventions that make life better, and that self-interest, that's fine. So it's not a matter of are we self-interested? We're human beings. Of course we are. But the pro suspends their self-interest and genuinely and authentically focuses on how can I make this other person's life, better, easier, more fulfilling, or whatever it is, however we uniquely bring our asset of value to the table.
I like that. It's funny, and I think it can be small things, right? It doesn't have to be big things. I'll give you a great example. When we moved into a new building with my company that I owned before, and at the front of the parking lot, right close to the door, were the employee parking, and the customer parking was at the back of the parking lot. It made no sense to me, so I had them come repaint everything, and we started parking at the back of the parking lot. And at first, my employees thought I was crazy. I'm like, well, why would we make the customers walk all the way past our vehicles to get to the front door? It's the small things in life, I think, that make a big difference.
Those little things make a huge difference. It says to them that you're placing their interests first, that your goal is to make their life better, easier, more fulfilling, happier, easier. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about law number 4. It deals with authenticity. I love this one.
Yeah, the law of authenticity says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Now, in the story, one of the mentors, Deborah Davenport, shared her story, a very important lesson she learned early in her career, you may recall, and that is that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and hey, they are very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. Now, when you do, well, as I like to say, show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They are attracted to you. They know you. They like you. They trust you. They respect you. I think people really have a thing for consistency and congruency. And I think Gandhi summed it up wonderfully when he defined integrity as when everything you think and everything you feel and everything you say and everything you do are in alignment. I think that sort of congruency has power. Now, we might think, well, why wouldn't somebody be authentic? And the first thing that comes to our mind is, well, they're trying to trick us or something. And of course, there are those people too. We live in a big world. There's lots of people. There's, the good ones, the bad ones, and what have you. But that's not really who I'm thinking of in this case. I think a lot of times, Sheila, people don't show up as themselves because they don't have that self-confidence. They don't really grasp that value that they bring. And when you don't really believe in your own value, it's difficult to justify showing up authentically. And that was what Deborah's situation was. She didn't realize what she had. So if you remember, she learned all the techniques and all the closes and all the this and all the that, which again, all those are fine. But if you're not really embracing your own value, then all that is covering. It's not the essence. And so I think we really need to, my friend Amy Wells calls it walking in your value. It's really in it because, and see what happens is when we don't understand, and by the way, the value I'm talking, we all have two types of value, I think. We have intrinsic value just by being born, but we also have what I call market value. And that market value is, I would define that as your individual strengths, traits, characteristics, skills that you bring to the marketplace that allows you to add value in some way for which you'll be financially rewarded. Because again, that's how it works. You provide value, reward. Right. And so Amy owned and she still does, she owns a wedding shop, where they sell wedding dresses in San Antonio. And and what happened was after I spoke at a conference, she was there, and I was telling the story that I told earlier about Law 1, the difference between price and value. And it gave her an idea that because the wedding industry or the wedding shop industry, as she explained it later, when I first heard from her months afterwards, now I'm good friends with her, but I first heard this several months after I first met her, is very much a discount business. And she said that people would come in, the bride-to-be with her mom usually, and the first thing they would ask is, how much of a discount can I get? Now, that surprised me because you think on such an important day, their big concern would be value, not price. And it is. But what happens is the industry itself, trains people how to buy.
Right.
So if the industry trains people that it's a discount industry, that's what people are going to Go for it. So Amy said, no, from now on, we're going to walk in our value. And she told her team that they were going to clarify the value. And Amy, having lots of experience in the business, certain connections and ways that she could add extra value, she said, we're going to sell on full price. We're not going to discount, but we're going to provide such extraordinary value and communicate it. We're going to walk in our value. Her team members were not excited about this. But Amy decided that's what we're going to do. So a woman comes in, a bride with her mom. Amy sends her teammate over. Her teammate comes back visibly shaken in a couple of minutes and says, Amy, the mother is not happy about this at all, and she demands to talk to you right now. So Amy walks out there, and the mom says, Amy, I'm very disappointed in you. I was expecting more from you than this. And Amy looked at her, and you got to realize Amy's the sweetest, nicest, most wonderful person in the world. Amy looks at her and says, well, more from me than this you expect, more from me than this you're going to receive. And then she said, I'm going to give you 19 years of my experience in this business. I'm going to give you, and she named a couple of other benefits, connections she had, and ways she can get, and so forth. Then she looks at the bride, primps the bride temporarily, looks back at the mom and says, and mainly, I'm going to give you delivery of the perfect dress for the perfect day your daughter has dreamt about her entire life.
Sold.
Yeah. Well, the next day, the daughter calls back and says, Amy, my mother says, not only are we to buy the dress from you, but instead of paying you the 50% deposit you asked for, I'm to write you out a check for the full amount. And see, I think the reason is because the mom felt great about the fact that Amy realized the value she brought on this very important day. She's going to take care of her daughter, not try to make a sale at a discount price. Her mom, the mom starts referring everybody to Amy. And Amy's business becomes even much more referral business. And she's selling at full price. And you know the people who refer her are telling the people they refer, don't even bother asking for a discount. You're not going to get it. But you're going to get such amazing service. Well, Amy's income for the store went up $10,000 per month.
Wow.
From the point she started doing that, all from walking in her value. So often we think, oh, we have to compete on price, low price. No, low price is a race to the bottom. When you sell on price, you're a commodity. When you sell on value, you're a resource. But first, you've got to walk in your value like Amy. You've got to understand what is the value you bring to the table and how do you communicate it to your prospects and customers in such a way that they understand that value.
Oh, I'm glad you shared that story. That's a terrific story. And I think it's so very true. Marie Forleo teaches the same thing. Don't discount yourself. Figure out a way to add value in a different way.
Right. Exactly.
And I love that. Well, let's talk about the final one, which is receptivity.
The law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And you may recall late in the story, Pindar, the main mentor, asked Joe to breathe out and hold that breath without breathing in. And Joe tries, but obviously he can't do it. You've got to do both. And you know, and that's the lesson. You breathe out and you breathe in. The tide rolls out and it rolls back in and it rolls back out. You know, and that's what life is. It's in or it's out. It's back in. Is that right? So that's how we breathe. So here's the thing. See, breathing out, breathing in, giving and receiving, simply two sides of the very same coin. And I think many people make a mistake by thinking that giving and receiving are opposite concepts. They're not. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. The key isn't, what's important is to understand, it's not a matter of are you a giver or a receiver. One without the other doesn't work. Focusing on one side of the equation while trying to minimize the other, it's an exercise in futility because all giving is made possible only because it's also a receiving. All receiving is made possible only because it's also a giving. The key is focus. Focus on the giving. Now again, when we say giving, we mean giving value to the marketplace, giving value to those you're serving, okay? Focus on the giving. Just as importantly, allow the receiving. Because if we don't allow the receiving, then we're stopping the flow.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and my guess is that these are all going to work better in combination of each other, right? If you put them all together, not just a few pieces here and there, but really it's kind of a package.
That's
like
key.
a hand works better with all 5 fingers. Same thing with this the concept.
That's the key. And I say this to people, that doing one of them, or two of them, or three, or even four of them, hey, it will get you, it will get you 7 or 8 inches on the 36-inch yardstick of success. But it's only by using all 5 of them together in conjunction that you're going to marshal its true power. And if you do utilize all 5 of them, you cannot help but succeed at whatever it is you're trying to do.
Perfect. Well, let me ask this. I'm going to read a little thing in the book that I read, which was, so in your book you say most of us have grown up seeing a world as a place of limitations rather than a place of inexhaustible treasures, and a world of competition rather than co-creation. And the co-creation thing caught me, especially since you've co-authored multiple books with John David Mann. So I want to ask you a little bit about that co-creation concept, because I think I'm learning to appreciate it more, that people, I look at them less as my competitors, but more as an ability to maybe co-create something. So what has your process been with co-creating? What's your system for that? And how did you and John hook up to do these tasks together?
Well, the way John and I hooked up on this was John was the editor-in-chief. I had never met John at the time personally, but of course I knew him because he was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to write for. And there's always a little bit, I think, of defensiveness from a writer when someone edits your material, because not that you don't think they're better. I mean, I knew he was a better writer. He already had a great reputation as far as what he was doing. But you always wonder, are they going to maybe leave something out that's really important, or, and the running joke became that John would send back, and he's a brilliant guy, but he's very, very humble. So he would write back and he'd say, well, I made this change here, I put this here, is this okay? Which of course was great. And the running joke was I used to write him back every month and say, John, not only is it okay, you write my stuff better than I write my stuff. And so I had wanted to, I love parables, business fables, and had read them for years. And I had a book out called Endless Referrals, which was how to cultivate a referral-based much of a how-to book. And I had the idea of taking the basic principle of Endless Referrals, which is that focusing on bringing value to others, putting it in a parable. I had a very sketchy idea. I had the name, The Go-Giver. I had a very sketchy, and I started to write it. It took me all of about a minute, Sheila, before I realized that there's a big difference between writing a how-to book, which is just writing down what you know, and actually trying to write a work of fiction, a story. So John was the only guy I thought of who I wanted to write this thing and be the lead writer. So I called him. And I just said, I have this idea, blah, blah, blah. Can I send it to you? And I knew he was very, very, very busy, because he was very much in demand even back then. He's even more so now in demand. But he and his fiance, now his wife Anna, but his fiance looked at it, and they're very much partners. They do everything with each other, and they both liked the idea. And John called me and said, I think we've got something here. So when he and Anna went to Tampa, across the state, for me to visit her mom, they drove over, we had dinner, we talked about our vision for the book and what we thought it could be, and then basically went to work on it. And again, John was the lead writer and the storyteller. I mean, it was his magic that wove the tale. And it was just a great, great collaboration. But it's very easy to collaborate with someone when you know they're a much better writer than you are. Okay. Very easy. John, that is great.
I like that.
The process a lot easier.
It's like picking smarter people to be around you than yourself. I love that.
And I have a knack for that. I mean,
so do I.
That's who I work with, who's in my, from Kathy, who's my business partner, and all the different people. They're all much smarter than I am, and they make me look great.
And what about the co-creation process? Like, how do you guys keep up with that from a productivity? Like, do you share, like, use Google Docs? Do you have a process management? What do you do to keep up with that side of it?
Oh, it all just went on email when we'd write something, but then we're on the phone a lot going over everything. Because what we did is, every line, every word, it seemed, got changed at one point or another. And we had a great team. The agency that represented us, the publisher we worked with, once we found the publisher, it took our agent 25 different rejections before they got the publisher. But once we were working with them, and then the whole team we worked with, just gave us great feedback. So different characters changed this or that, and Rachel started out as Ronald. It was all different kinds of things. So,
Bob, I am so pleased that you just admitted that you were turned down 25 times before it got published. See, I think so many people would look at you and go, whatever he does is going through no matter what. But see, we all have our challenges, and we all have our stepping stones, and we all have, and I love that you shared that.
Thank you. Some good friends of mine, Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton, wrote a great book called Go for No. It's at www.goforno.com. It's a small little book, mostly written for people in direct sales. But basically the premise is yes is the destination, no is how you get there.
Oh, I'm going to have to read that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, and I wish they wrote this book 30 years ago when I first got in sales, because it would have kept me, more up than I was, because no's are to say. You can say, oh, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the opportunity, or they're rejecting, yeah, right. Well, it still feels yucky sometimes. But they're able to reframe no in such a way that you can embrace the no's, not just put up with them, but embrace them and understand and use them as the stepping stone to getting to yes. But I can't think of anybody who accomplishes anything significant who doesn't get rejected and get a whole lot of no's. And I think what happens sometimes, Sheila, is that people who have great ideas and great intentions and take action, they get a couple of people telling them no, or they get laughed at, or they have somebody tell them it's a lousy idea, and they think they're the only ones that happens to. And because of that, they stop. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's not even necessarily a character flaw. It's that they don't realize, if they only knew that no is a part of it,
yep,
that would give them the strength to go on. They'd say, okay, that's a no. I'm supposed to get these.
Yep, use them as stepping stones.
Exactly.
I will link everything up in the show notes. I certainly appreciate it. If someone wanted to connect with you, where would you want to send them?
My website, burg.com, and they can pretty much get everything there. They can get my blog. They can download chapter 1 of the book. They can connect with me on social media and so forth.
Here is that book. You can see I have it tagged here. If you've not read this, please do. It's a really great read. I will link it up in the show notes. Bob, I so appreciate your time today. I follow what you do. I do think you're a go-giver, and I've learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sheila.
Have a great day.
You too.
The world needs you, so don't underestimate your greatness. If you liked today's episode, you can spread the word by using the share buttons on the side. And if you want to learn how to simplify your life and your business, join the community and get our free updates directly to your inbox.